A month after releasing their latest update, New World's team has been laid off. The game has been put on ice, no new content, and now for the community, all that looms is a server switch off. Which means this is a hard end for an MMO that, at its beginning, boasted nearly 1 million concurrent players at launch. Obviously, not all of them stuck around, but enough did. Then it meant this was Amazon Gaming's biggest homegrown success. But here's the thing. This story isn't just about New World, because behind the scenes, Amazon Games is undergoing their latest pivot. One of many they've made over the last 15 years, where now they're ending New World, allegedly killing their Lord of the Rings MMO, and internal MMOs just seem to be off the table entirely. What are they excited about instead? Well, when you take a look at Amazon's new direction, I think New World's cancellation does actually make a bit more sense. Because they're excited about such things as this, a chatbot-powered Snoop Dogg improv game. Yep, I really said those words, and that really is a thing that Amazon are pushing. Look, if you don't want to code or you're not into games, skip this, but if not, then I have got something for you, and that is boot.dev/Bellular News. They're today's sponsor, and you know what? Where the fuck were they decade ago when I was in university? You see, I've got a BEng computer science, and from doing that, I can tell you that Boot teaches this stuff incalculably better. Now, what they teach you is back-end development. That's the kind that lands 100k plus comp jobs, and they do it through a proper 12-month structured program that's like a role-playing game. I mean, literally, leaderboards, achievements, a Discord that actually helps, and over 750,000 students have completed 33.7 million lessons, which is wild, and that's including TypeScript, Go, and Python from the fundamentals up. So this is not some learn to code in 2 weeks silly scam thing. Boot teaches you the fundamentals that separate professional developers from vibe coders who ship security nightmares. And just take a look at their new training grounds feature. It's kind of wild. It knows what you've learned on their platform, and then it uses that to challenge you, basically generating personalized coding problems using spaced repetition so you actually learn. It's always growing, it's an actual community, and you can actually browse all of their contents for completely free. You only pay when you want to get stuck into all the interactivity and game-related stuff. So, to learn it all properly and get 25% off your first purchase, go to boot.dev/Bellular News. The way to save the most money is to do that on the annual plan, and of course that's backed up by the fact that if you're not happy, they will refund you on the spot. Okay, so New World is a small bit of a larger story where Amazon just laid off 14,000 people worldwide, and reports suggest it's part of a wider corporate move where they're basically cutting down staff after the pandemic boom. But equally, they're freeing up more resources for robotics and their AI budget, which always must be bigger. Now, at least one of those things is unlikely to impact gaming, at least for now, that being the robots. But going back to the layoffs, in addition to Amazon Games, we've also seen them across Twitch. And not just small roles, I mean decade-plus veterans who have now been removed. Basically, the people who built entire systems over at Twitch. Things like the fraud program that protected creators. Those people are, gone. And I suppose, hey, they let them get through TwitchCon before they went and did the firings. I'm sure all the headlines about attacks and streamers will be comforting to them as they go and collect their severance. But as for the Amazon Games side, well, they've been hit even more than Twitch, because, once again, Amazon has tried to pivot their strategy, and this time, it is away from their only real homegrown success. Let's return the focus back to New World. So a month ago, Amazon's development teams released their latest major update for the game. It was called Nighthaven, and it was seemingly a success with solid reviews. They also gave away their only paid expansion, Angry Earth, at the same time, and all of this spiked Steam's concurrent users to the highest point in a year. It actually looked good. Now, obviously, this was never going to match the launch in terms of numbers. That launch had nearly 1 million people on Steam, but obviously, a lot of them were kind of just waiting in the queue, so the concurrency shown in Steam, maybe a little bit inflated. But still, there was enough long-term success that the game survived well enough up to 2024, which is when the console editions would launch. It was obviously enough for them to do a paid expansion, and at the same time as the console launch, they actually tied it in to the Secret Level series. And in the episode covering this game, they even got Arnold Schwarzenegger to do a voice. So they certainly were trying to market New World. But after these layoffs, well, the team made an announcement in the blog post, where they say this: it's now, quote, unsustainable to continue supporting the game with new content updates. So from that, we can glean that maybe the new content could have underperformed, but I don't think that we can disconnect this from the timing of the broader layoffs at Amazon and Amazon Games, because under different circumstances, New World may have got its chance to stabilize. After all of the updates and the free expansion did actually spike up those player counts. But instead, the game is on ice, no future content updates. The one paid expansion is free for everyone in PC, and there will be server and bug fixes operating through to 2026, and they've committed to players getting 6 months notice before any changes in access to the game, which basically means if they're going to shut it down properly, they'll let you know 6 months beforehand. But that's not all that went on. Some of the rollout here was a total mess. As an example, they told players the game would stay on Steam, but then the game got removed from Steam for nearly a day. It seems that weird backend updates caused the problem, and the Steam page, it got gutted of all marketing except for a warning image, and now it's obviously full of angry reviews about the game being abandoned. Obviously, no new players are going to be picking this up with much excitement given the news, and that's why we're down to a 37% recent positive review score over in Steam. So all in all, it's an ignominious end for a game that actually managed to launch as an MMO after most of the competition had already kind of tried to be a WoW killer, and while it obviously wasn't a WoW killer, it was a very different game. It managed to carve out its own niche, and it stayed as one of the top 100 most played games on Steam. But obviously, that wasn't enough. And it seems the devs may have known some of this was coming. They actually left a text note in the latest patch thanking and saluting players for playing the game, which obviously, now that we kind of know the context, hits a little bit different. But today's story isn't just New World, because it may not be the only cancellation, and that is because Amazon are cutting deep into their gaming division. We can look to staff announcing their own layoffs to get a little bit more info. Basically, we know that the same team building New World was also building the, quote, fledgling Lord of the Rings game. And from what we've gathered, both projects are similarly impacted. Now, that Lord of the Rings game was announced as a collaboration with the Embracer Group back in 2022. But it was actually Amazon's second attempt to make a Lord of the Rings MMO, which sounds kind of wild, but rights and bullshit certainly are what they are. And perhaps when those plans were first made, they thought, Rings of Power would have done a little bit better. Anyway, Amazon seems unlikely to commit the resources needed for that game. We have this quote. It's of significant role reductions that have hit the Irvine and San Diego MMO teams. Internal MMOs are seemingly completely off the table now, though support for Western publication stuff is going to continue, and that covers games like Throne of Liberty and Lost Ark. Amazon's reps confirm that to Massively OP, so it does seem that at least for those things, the profit margin is still solid. But Amazon's gaming ambition is very much not over because other things are in development. Now, Steve Boom, he's the vice president of audio, Twitch, and games, confirmed that the AAA Tomb Raider game is actually still in development with Crystal Dynamics. It's the one that's going to have synergy with an upcoming Amazon Prime Video production, so maybe that's why that one isn't dead, and we know there are two other projects that will continue as well, and those are the recently revealed March of Giants Dieselpunk MOBA, and then the 2024 collaboration on an open-world AAA racing game with Maverick Games. But to get a proper handle on this, we need to look at the full internal memo that Variety picked up. Now, this memo is from Steve Boom. It starts by heralding an amazing success, and that success is the Snoop Dogg slop, which again I'll get to shortly. A bit weird, but overall, Boom's framing is that Amazon has got to be leaning into the things that Amazon does best, and he cites the recent relaunch of Amazon Luna as an example of that, where it's now got part of the Twitch Prime benefits basically all baked in, and most importantly, that includes the new generative AI-backed Courtroom Chaos, featuring Snoop Dogg. And their aim here is basically Luna streaming becoming a major living room gameplay benefit. Now, this is all part of Amazon's GameLift tech, which basically is, if you imagine, say, Jackbox, where your phone basically lets you play along at home, it's kind of like that, but much of it is being powered by Gen AI stuff, like, for an example, this Snoop Dogg chatbot that, apparently is a game experience. But what this is just the latest pivot from Amazon. To get a handle on their many pivots, we got to take a look at this February post from Ethan Evans. Now, he was the Amazon VP of Prime Gaming until 2020, and in typical LinkedIn style, he does talk about something interesting, just in very LinkedIn words. Now, what he talks about is how Amazon tried to take on Steam in 2008. Imagine instead of Gabe, we could have had Jeff. Not a great comparison, but the point here is that Amazon basically thought that they just needed to make an alternative store. Now, as we all know, that did not succeed. But during that time, they purchased and then killed Reflective Entertainment. They were one of the biggest casual game stores on the internet, and they were supposed to be a stepping stone towards Amazon's big ambition of taking on Steam. That obviously didn't work, so they pivoted again, and when they did, they bought Twitch in 2014, essentially hoping that the attention they would get from Twitch would move the needle on their own store. The result of that was Twitch Prime being rebranded as Prime Gaming in 2020, and as of 2025, that's now been replaced with Luna Standard, including the cloud services stuff. That's quite the pivot, and it's because by 2020, they really stopped their big store ambitions. Though funnily enough, they did that right as they actually started to find success with game releases. Now, they had spent a decade working on proprietary mobile game stores that didn't work. In 2016, they killed Breakaway, which was their Twitch-integrated 4v4 fantasy sports game. There was another big bet in the form of Crucible. It had been in development since 2014, it launched in 2020, and unlaunched just a month later. Now, when that happened, all internal focus shifted over to New World, and New World worked. Even though they couldn't sustain the launch hype, they persisted. They muddled through where every previous game had failed. Amazon had found their niche, something that their scale could deliver that others couldn't, and now they are abandoning it. Yet again, they have pivoted, and now it's to a future that honestly, I think looks shit. Here's the thing, running a service game gave Amazon's publishing wing some new revenue streams. The Western releases of games like Lost Ark actually worked, and that all would have set the company up for their next project, where they could learn from all of their mistakes and make something like the Lord of the Rings MMO. It actually did make sense, it stood to reason, but now that won't happen, because Amazon would rather focus on small-scale multiplayer games, not MMOs. They would rather have Luna in your living room, something that benefits every single Prime subscriber. So it's not games made for people who like games, it is Prime content for people who are subscribed to Prime, in the form of games. That means no console required, no PC required, and, I think, no us required. They're simply not going to make things that we're interested in because we're not relevant to their Prime strategy, and we're not relevant to how their Prime strategy fits into their AI plays, including their AI plays in games, as we've seen with Courtroom Chaos, featuring the Snoop Dogg. Incredible! I love creativity, love art, fantastic. What a brilliant future. I can't wait to boot up Luna on my smart television. But what I will do is leave you with something, a neat little game called Escape from Duck-Off that's on absolutely goddamn huge numbers. It's exploded in Steam, even though most people in the West wouldn't even know about it, even though they probably would like it. And you can find all about that in this video next.